When you work in education leadership, you don't get off at 5 o'clock. Your mind is always on the clock, thinking of ways to solve problems for your students, parents, and teachers. On the Clock is your go-to podcast to learn valuable insights from education leaders across the United States. I'm your host, Todd Dallas Lamb, former White House appointee to the U.S. Department of Education, and we are now on the clock. Welcome back to On the Clock. I am your host, Todd Dallas Lamb, and today our guest is a superintendent from the great state of Texas, Fort Worth ISD, in the Fort Worth, Dallas area, Dr. Karen Molinar. Dr. Molinar, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me. Very excited to spend this time with you today.
I love it. I travel around the country a lot. I'm for education conferences and meetings, and I definitely have been blown away when I go to Texas and I see, particularly in Austin and in your part of the state, Dallas, Fort Worth, the almost endless skyscape of cranes and construction and road improvements. And I see that in Nashville. I see that in Austin, as I said. And when I see that, and I see that through the prism of an education glance, it tells me that states and those territories are expecting a lot more people, a lot more businesses. And I would imagine in Texas, there's a lot of technology companies that are moving in your way. And that has to drive, doesn't it, what you do as an educator in your district to try to produce the kinds of future employees that your community needs.
Yeah, you're definitely correct. We just were named one of the top 10 largest cities in the United States and for growth. So we're definitely, and that's just Fort Worth. If you're from this area, you keep Fort Worth and you keep Dallas separate. So a little bit of a rivalry, on the east and the west.
Yep.
But Fort Worth has definitely grown at a very fast pace, which means, it's my responsibility to provide a workforce for our city. With that, we have strong relationships with our chamber. And we have three major chambers: our Chamber of Commerce of Fort Worth, we have our Black Chamber, and we have our Hispanic Chamber as well in the city of Fort Worth. And then we have a mayor's council that is very, very focused on really post education, the workforce, certifications, as well as college and career. And so our mayor's council is made up of higher ed, but then also a lot of industries, and then really just helping us decide what certifications do our students need to be able to support the growth in our city. And then people are starting to realize Fort Worth is actually becoming one of the top areas for television and production and movies. Taylor Sheridan resides here. He
Right.
does his filming and producing of all of his shows. They film around the city pretty consistently. We have some filming happening today for one of his shows, and pretty much every week he's doing something with our city. So that's a different workforce that we really weren't prepared for, that we're pivoting as a school district of how to support him so we can utilize local talent versus him having to bring in talent from other states and save money as well with, of course, per diems, travel, and so forth.
You know, Dr. Molinar, we had the star of his latest show, Landman. We interviewed Billy Bob Thornton on this show. I've known him for about 5 or 6 years now. What a great program that is.
Yeah.
It must be really cool to see it in action. And it's funny to me about Hollywood. I think when we think about Hollywood, we think about the end result, but there's so much work that goes into the production and so many jobs, aren't there?
Tons of jobs, and just a great opportunity for our community to be part of it. They utilize some of our facilities as well for their filming. So that was really our first, entryway into the world of Taylor Sheridan, and just looking forward to not just him, but other producers and directors. How can we support? And how exciting for our kids. Our students need really, what's the context? Like, how can I make that connection? And there's nothing better for them than, of course, something like a television, movies, or social media for them to make that connection.
You were telling me off air that you've been with the district for something like 27 years. What was the economy like when you first started? What were the kind of jobs that students were being trained for in your district 27 years ago versus the change that you see now with technology and the film industry? How dramatic has that been?
Yeah, it's been quite a change. I was recruited here from the East Coast to teach and 27 years ago, and seeing how our students were really just supporting whatever that local was or needing to leave and go into the oil and gas business out west. But the opportunities now are more stabilized within the city. There's HVAC, definitely certification that we're trying to support the auto industry as well. Of course, we have a big GM plant in Arlington. Autobahn is a big partner with us
Mm.
at Fort Worth Independent School District. Meta is a partner as well that does a lot of partnerships with our students. So we're really seeing it switch into that technology base. And even when you talk about automotive, it's more about we know cars nowadays are totally different. So you must have the skill of technology to be able to have those certifications. So it's really keeping up with that. Going into the 25-26 school year, our focus is to do an inventory or reevaluation of our CTE programming and looking at our current certifications and seeing how we can align more with the needs of our city and the industries.
I I look at a lot of websites for school districts, and I always say I think I could tell the effectiveness of that school district based on how clear their website is. Yours is extraordinarily clear, and I was looking at some of the initiatives you have in the P-Tech and STEM world. How do you constantly with the sea of change that we see, with technology changing right before our eyes all the time. I mean, I looked at AI for the first time 3 years ago, and my son was telling me how he was writing a paper about John Brown. And how do you keep reaching back to the community to make sure that you're still offering STEM and technology classes that are appropriate to the time?
That really has been a focus just since I became interim and then was named finalist and became permanent, was building back those community partnerships and business partnerships. We can make plans all day long in a room for our schools and our students. However, if you're not asking what's needed, but then there's the internships, there are the apprenticeships, there's the ability to take our students out to those fields, out to American Airlines, that's up in Alliance. Some of, like I said, Autobahn, taking our students for them to see it firsthand and see what can become for a career that may not take 4 years of college to be able to achieve that. And then also really thinking about what do they need to be a sustainable citizen in our city as well. Looking at the price of housing, price of apartments, and really putting them on a path to be successful because we want them to have a passion for what they do, but we want them to be able to have a compensation that would be able to sustain them. And then when they're ready to start a family as well.
If there's one thing I noticed when I worked in the George W. Bush White House, was how many Texans wanted to get back to Texas. So you have a population of people that are really, I've been amazed over the years at how much Texans truly love their state. And so you really are educating people for your own community, aren't you?
Definitely. And we see that with our students. We have great higher ed partnerships here as well. We have University of Texas in Arlington, literally 20 minutes away. TCU is a Big 12 school.
Corn frogs.
Go Frogs. We have SMU over in Dallas. We have UNT as well in North Texas and Denton. And then TCC, Tarrant County Community College, is a very, very strong partner that we do a lot of dual credit and certifications through for associate's degrees. So our kids, they get accepted and we do great with scholarship money, but they don't want to leave Texas. They want to
Mhm.
stay. So having those partnerships with the higher ed is very important. So they know we can still do it here and give back to your community as well. And you say how much people love Texas. So I'm originally from the East Coast. We left for 1 year and I literally probably cried the most of the year. And I said, I have to move back. And I'm not even from Texas, but it
Yeah.
became part of my heart, my life. And I told my husband, I said, we're coming, we have to go back. And he's a Texan. And he's like, are you serious? And I said, Yes, and we have always said we would never leave Texas again.
It truly is incredible. Can you take that Texas drawl down? Have you gotten your accent down a little bit, having been there for so long?
So if I when I go home, they say they're like, "Oh, your accent," but then after I spend a week in Delaware and I come here, they make fun of me. They're like, "Why are you talking like that?" So
Yeah. My mom taught uh, for 42 years, and she was originally from Arkansas, but moved to California and was admittedly, she told me, ashamed of her Southern accent when she went to college and worked really hard to hide it. But I have to tell you, Dr. Molinar, when Pearl Lamb had a few gin and tonics, the Southern accent kind of came out naturally.
yes, yeah, that could happen to a Karen Molinar as well.
The other thing I noticed on your website is something that is sort of near and dear to my heart, which is the concept of early college high schools,
Mhm.
where students can graduate from high school with not only a high school degree but an associate's degree, giving them a 2-year jumpstart on college and all that that costs and all of that time that it takes. I guess my question is, how's it going, and why the heck doesn't every district in America have some form of this?
That's the best question because it is going fantastic for us. We actually have 3 sites on our community colleges. So we have what we call TCC South, that is it's standalone college. We have a building, that we have partnered with TCC that we house, a principal there, all the support staff. We have another one at Marine Creek, another campus that we actually partnered on a bond to build a brand new building for our students to be there. And then we have our Texas Academy of Biomedical Science with our partner downtown. So those are just our 3 standalones that our students actually go there every single day and they participate in college courses as well as have that support system from our Fort Worth ISD teachers. Then in addition to that, all of our students on all of our high school campuses are able to participate in dual credit as well and not have to go and really be at those campuses. And then we do on ramps, which is dual credit hours with the University of Texas, where our students are also not only earning credits, but they're able to transfer those credits to other colleges going in. So for us, it's like, how can we get ahead and give them all the opportunities we can to receive that associate's degree? I mean, we had 24 graduations. I did 22 out of the 24. 2 of them conflicted, so I couldn't make those 2. But
Mhm.
the amount of students, that we recognize that are graduating with college hours, but then with certifications and associate's degrees was overwhelming to see that they have a jump start coming out of college. So when a district does not take advantage of that, it really is confusing because you are already putting the students behind the workforce.
It hits me on so many levels because I watched a ceremony in Baltimore City, of kids who were representing with their AA degree, the first person in the entire history of their family to get an associate's degree and be moving on, matriculating on to a 4-year degree. And the level of enthusiasm from their parents and from those kids who probably never dreamt, the parents never dreamt that their kids would go to college, but this school moved them in that direction. It was one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen in my life, and I assume that some of those schools are for or target or in an area where a lot of underprivileged kids are really getting a kickstart in their dreams of moving on in life.
Well, and it's free. So there's no tuition. We pay for the books, we pay for everything. But then in addition to that, when our students graduate, we have a partnership we call T3, which is really a city partnership with local funders, as well as our mayor and mayor council, and then Tarrant County Community College that any first generational student that wants to go to Tarrant County College, it's paid for once they
Wow.
graduate. And they just have to maintain their grades and stay, in good standing. So the opportunities we are doing once they even leave us in this city is just, I mean, it's just fantastic because we believe that our kids want to stay here and we want to develop them to be part of our workforce.
It sounded the way you described some of those early college high schools, that there was a micro focus on certain technologies or certain um, studies, are those in a charter school environment at all?
No, this is totally still independent. It's
Yep.
still partnering with our community college, but like our Texas Biomedical Academy, that one really does focus on more the medical side for our students who want to go in that field. They come out being able to work in pharmacies already, being able to work in hospitals. Could be, they're drawing blood or but they have those certifications coming out with that pre med track. And then our other two are really focused with many different. We have a fire and police academy at one of them that are students who really want to be
Well,
first responders. And we know that they need to have at least associate's degree. And so we're able to provide that as well as the training for them in addition to that. And then we of course have our HVAC and some of more of our mechanical side in addition to that, as well as educators. We have some of our students who are on the pathway to being teachers. And of course, we love that because nationwide we have a teacher shortage. And so they are already working with students in our elementary schools and able to get their associate's degree in early childhood.
a movement in education in this K-12 life that we both live in, we have movements, don't we? I mean, for a long time, in the last 20 years, there was a real effort to really focus on getting kids into a 4-year
Mhm.
classroom in college environment. I'm seeing a nice trend in my mind, acknowledging that not every kid needs to go to a 4-year college and spend all that money and basically be unemployed, where they could be learning a trade and having an incredibly fulfilling life, as you say, being a first responder,
Mhm.
working as a nurse, where you don't come out of college with 4 years of debt, and you can go do something that is as rewarding, frankly, as what you get to do in moving kids along to associate's degrees. I keep coming back to how satisfying that must be for you.
Yeah, very much so. And so I personally graduated with my associate's degree way back when. And it was not the norm. I was maybe one of a handful from my high school that did that. And it really was for me. I had finished all my high school courses, so I could have gone and work a half a day, but I decided to take classes instead and do a jump start myself. So the passion is really for me as a personal because I saw what it also provided me. It led me to know I wanted to be a teacher because I had that experience while I still was in high school. We're asking our 16, 17-year-olds to make a life career choice.
Yeah.
And and I have a daughter in college, she's in a 4-year college and she thinks she knows what she wants to do. And my husband and I, we just kind of take a step back and we're going to let her figure it out. It may change, it may go a different path even once she graduates college. But we have to provide our kids with exposure and not put them in a financial situation where they think they have to sign up for a 4-year school and get a student loan out when there's affordable, still higher education opportunities right here in our city.
It's funny. I talk about movements in education, but in sports, when I was playing sports, you played multiple sports. We now put kids more and more in a position to micro focus on one sport. I think that's a mistake generally. And I think, as I've tried to tell my son, who's a freshman at San Diego State, trying to figure out what he wants to do, because everybody asks, "What are you going to do?" I tell him, "Man plans and God laughs." Right? Get as many experiences as you can, and we'll figure it out after you're done what your passion is, and try to chase that passion. And but we, as parents, I think, and I'm guilty of this myself because my son played just soccer for most of his 15 years as a child. I wish if I could go back and do it over again, we would explore different sports, and different areas of expertise, both academically and through sports.
I agree, and we really do promote that in Fort Worth Independent School District. We want our kids to be exposed to everything. Yeah, the amount of students who actually go to school and play and, have the scholarships and continue on to something else, we know is a very, very small percentage.
Mhm.
So how do you expose them to everything and then also get to experience different people, different situations, different sports, have different rules, but they go to different schools, they travel differently. And really, that is what we want. We also have a very strong fine arts program here. Mariachi is one of, a passion here, especially on our schools on the north side. And our students are well known throughout the state of Texas. Our north side students, as well as our Pascal students. So their talent has to also still allow them, if they want to be in mariachi, they could still be in sports or, the
Yep.
student council, or still be able to take dual credit hours. And that's really our goal, is to give them as much exposure as we can.
You have a minority majority district. It's about 65% Latino, Hispanic. Is that right?
That is correct.
And as you look at, as you said earlier in our interview, you are all constantly reaching out to these various effectively political entities, the Chamber of Commerce,
Mhm.
the Black Chamber of Commerce, the Mayor's Council. Um, did you ever think you'd when you were a teacher, if you became a superintendent, that you'd be doing this much work, understanding your community through political entities?
No, as a teacher, you never think that.
Yeah.
But I will say the amount of support our city wants our district to thrive is, it gets emotional sometimes.
Yeah.
I can be out having dinner and someone will come introduce themselves, and they want to help. They want to lean in. They want us to be successful. They want our kids to be successful. And just to see all the different, communities and partners that want to lean in, and they all have their own mission and vision, but
Hmm.
the commonality is, if the students are successful in Fort Worth ISD in the school system, and we have a long way to go. Like, believe me, we are not where we need to be when it comes to academics, especially when you look at our elementary and middle school scores, and we're revamping all that going into
Yep.
next school year. But to know our city supports us, that keeps us going, keeps me going, because I know that, when we make changes for our students, that they're behind me 110%.
Well, I mean, in a world where we hear, you can't open up a newspaper where there's not some complaint about politics and education. It sounds like Fort Worth, Texas, you guys are really making it work.
Yeah. It's the politics are gonna be there. It's there
Yep.
no matter what. As long as kids are at the center of all of our decisions, we all can sleep at night.
Dr. Karen Molinar is the superintendent at Fort Worth ISD, and I can't thank you enough for being on the show. It sounds, like you could really doing amazing things in Fort Worth. And if I was listening to this as a parent in that area, I would be pretty fired up to get my kid in one of your schools. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Enjoyed our conversation today.
Great. Thank you so much. Antonio Abair produced this show, and we thank you for joining us.